contract, that is what you will see in the contract. Operate the public access channel. Operate the public access channel for non-commercial public community access programming purposes in a manner that is consistent with the principles set forth in this contract and telecommunications ordinance.
The contract is right in front of you.
So when you look at the contract, these things that are in here are not necessarily in priority order, because in the operating policies and procedures, that's something that obviously this organization and you as a board create and develop. That is actually above training and promotion in terms of what's listed. These aren't listed in priority. These are just listed. They all have the same level of priority from our perspective. But the primary service that the city contracts with community access television to provide is programming and training. Training our citizens how to utilize video production equipment to create their own programs. And that is a very broad and wide-ranging activity, because it could be anything from teaching somebody how to use a field camera to teaching somebody how to direct a live studio production. And those things are things that many of us spend years and years and years learning how to do, and learning how to do well. I do want to say this. Nothing I say here today is intended to be critical in any way, but I am going to present some perspectives that you might not have ever heard, and that you might not have ever had an opportunity to see things from this perspective, because I do bring a different perspective to this whole situation, based on my background and based on what I've been mandated as in my role as the manager of the television center to try to accomplish. And I firmly believe, and have always believed since day one, that we work together to accomplish these goals. And community access television has a mandate from the city based on this contract, and I have a mandate from my administration, and I think working together is the only way that we're going to create that and be able to accomplish both of those things. But I may say some things that sound critical. I'm not trying to be. Okay?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Has anything happened in the last couple of months or whatever to prompt this meeting, or are you just coming on because we have new board members and you just want us to all know how everything is, or a combination?
The second one.
Okay.
Now, this is not to address any specific situation, what happened with the previous manager, what might be going on with some of the contention that's going on between some of the independent producers and you as a board. That's not the city's business.
No, I'm just asking because
right.
you didn't mean you don't want it to appear to be critical or anything like that. I mean, why would you appear to be critical if you're just coming to inform us as to the relationship and to get the new board members on board? Because
there are some things that we're going to have to talk, or that I would like to address in terms of history, so we have a perspective. A lot of times we can start here today on March 20th, 2010, but if we don't look at what came before, sometimes what we do now doesn't have a good context. And so some of the things that and the reason I said that, I don't want, if I bring something up that has been happening, I'm not trying to address that and say this was bad, this was wrong. I'm just saying this is what was, and this is where things are coming from in some cases. And it's also as a response of, to be honest with you, there are people that think I'm the big bad guy, and it's unfortunate because my perspective and my goal is to make everything better for everybody. But there are people that are involved in both of our organizations that utilize the facility that sometimes hear things that they don't want to hear, and sometimes are told things that they don't want to be told, and they get upset about it. Now, we are making changes, and we're making, I believe, what are good changes. But there are some people that are very resistant to change, and we will get pushback from them. We'll get objection from them. I just want to, and that's why I said that. I just don't want anybody to feel like I'm being critical of anything that anybody this board has done, or actually any of the CAT staff has done. I think we all have opportunities for growth. We all have opportunities for improvement. I know I do, as to how we interact and how we can move forward. But I try to look at everything from an objective standpoint. My wife says sometimes too much. Sometimes she says, "You're just so cut and dried," and she's the emotional in the family. But I try to take that into account when I talk to people, and that's another reason why I say things like, "Please don't take something that I might say as being critical," because sometimes I say things that I think are objective, and I'm not always as successful as I want to be in understanding that other people's reactions to things. So it's one of those things that I deal with. One of the things that I did want to really point out with some of the things that have changed in the contract for 2010, and this is also important to understand because this is a year for the request for proposal will be published. What that means is that for those of you who haven't been through this process before, every year the city re-examines the contract, but every 5 years, and this is not unique to CAP. This is for every contracted service that the city provides, or contracts with somebody to provide. That every 5 years a new request for proposal is published. And what that is a request from the city for proposals to provide this service. And that request for proposal will be very detailed in, this is what the city is looking for from an organization in terms of services provided. And I've had some conversations with some of you individually regarding that particular process. But essentially, in a nutshell, the way it works is we've already started examining the RFP, what changes or revisions we may want to make in it, based on some of the things that the city may want to adjust from what happened 5 years ago. And that will be developed, and that will be published, and it will probably be open for usually about 30 days for people, organizations to provide proposals, and which we fully expect community access television will be open to doing that. And then those proposals are taken and a committee is formed of usually somebody from finance, a city council member, 1 or 2 people from the departments that are directly involved, which would probably include me and Director of Communication Lindsay Smith. There will be usually a citizen. In this case, I would imagine that we will have a member of the Telecommunications Advisory Board on that committee, and sometimes an at-large person that's just, "Hey, would you like to serve on this committee? Help us with this." That committee will review all the proposals and make a recommendation to the City Council for the organization that committee feels would be best positioned and appropriate to provide the services. And at that time, the City Council votes on it. And if they vote yes, there you go. That's the organization that gets awarded the contract. If they vote no, then we go back to the drawing board and do it again. So that's the process in a nutshell. Then this contract comes out of that proposal. Now this is the 5th contract of the 5-year cycle. One of the things that we did when we entered into contract review in 2009, which is this was a result of, is we looked very closely at clarification. There were a lot of items in the contract that were vague, from the 2009 contract that were vague, that were difficult, that we saw as a city, we saw that it was putting community access television as an organization in a bad place. Difficult to accomplish. We were looking at some of the definitions. We were looking at some of the aspects of reporting. We were looking at some of the things that were, in some cases, there were things in the 2009 contract that were contradictory. And so what we strived for was to eliminate as much as possible, but we didn't want to make a huge change because that puts an undue burden on the organization to react to those and respond to those changes. But some of the particular changes that we made in this contract, and one of the reasons I think it's important to look at this is that I know your Policies and Procedures Committee has to base a significant amount of its work on this contract. There are lots of policies and procedures that don't fall under the purview of this, but I think this is the foundational document that the Policies and Procedures Committee looks at and says, what do we have to do to comply with this? And then after that, we can add on to that. B, provide equal access, that's the same. C, operating policies and procedures, that is, that's pretty much the same. Develop funding, that's the same. Compliance with laws, rules, and regulations, we didn't make any significant changes in that. Training and promotion was changed fairly significantly. Create and provide training curriculum to emphasize video proficiency and production quality in public access programming. That's the same. I will come back and talk about that in just a minute, though. Certify a minimum of 20 individuals in the service area described above through CAT certification training. Complete certification training is necessary to use television center equipment and facilities. These individuals are certified producers. This is where one of those definition things came in. In the past, performance criteria, performance metrics were measured on things like local producers. Well, basically the way the local producer was defined was that anybody who walked in the door could be defined a local producer. If you walked in the door and talked to somebody, you could be, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it was pretty close to that. What that did not do is that did not allow for community access television to be able to address performance issues regarding training. So we created a classification of producer that is a certified producer. A certified producer being someone who has taken the training, has been certified through the training process, and is now authorized to check out and or utilize equipment at the television center. That's the intent behind that. And so that was changed. And so that very much distinctly defines the training performance. Okay? So if you look at this, certify a minimum of 20 individuals. That's for an entire year.
So it's 20 new producers per year.
Yes, sir. 20 new certified producers. And I make that distinction on purpose because there are other, there's also a definition for local producer. Okay? Now, one of the things that was looked at, and one of the things that has been expressed that was expressed in several meetings, was a desire to have community access television really start promoting the use of people producing things with their personal equipment and bringing those programs to be telecast. So if you look at number 3, promote CAT as a telecast facility such that a minimum of 10 new individuals in the service area request the telecast of programs they produce without using television center equipment or facilities. And we define those people as local producers. That's somebody who lives in the local service area that's produced a program using equipment that doesn't belong to the television center, created a program and said, hey, I live here, I produce this program, will you telecast it? Great, absolutely no problem. So that's what a local producer is defined as.
So would that include export? I mean, import programming? I mean, somebody from California sends us something that they want on our air?
No, it doesn't, because if you look at the definition, it says 10 new individuals in the service area, which is the 4 counties.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, sometimes somebody will send something in from out, and they want a local person to submit it to get it on our air, in other words.
Now, we have...
Like there was like a jazz or blues series or something that I had sponsored for somebody outside the area.
That does not fall under the definition of local producer, because that's not a production that was produced locally. Now, that doesn't mean... So that...
Let's
you
take
go back to
an
the...
import.
that still that still falls under another performance metric, which is 400 hours of new programming. Okay, that's new programming. If it's a show that's never been seen before, and it goes on the air, that's new programming. But we wanted to, because community access television's primary, one of their primary services that the city contracts with them to do is to provide training. That's number one. And so we put that at the top of the list, and we said 20 new individuals for that. We also wanted to promote community access television as a local resource, something that is primarily for people that live here. Not just the viewers, but the producers. Because what is the goal of community access television, and what is the city looking for? To provide a medium of communication for the people that live here. Okay? And yes, absolutely, we can say a lot about, well, this is good information, or this is very entertaining, or this is a good program for people to watch. And there are a lot of programs that are produced from outside the area that are telecast on community access television. Free Speech TV, and Grit TV. That's just a couple of programs that we see regularly scheduled. And that falls into the new programming metric.
There's been some discussion about that because in the contract it says it has to be by local producers or certified, and so that would exclude imports.
That excludes imports, but if you look farther down, let's see if I can find that. I did not actually highlight that particular clause. 80 hours of programming a week.
That does G.
Okay, there you go. We'll provide for telecasting of programs on the public access channel. CAT will telecast a minimum of 80 combined total hours of local, original, replayed, and imported programming per week. So your imported programming falls under that performance number there. I will tell you, most likely that number will go up.
Yeah, I'm wondering who's monitoring the hours and who monitors who's responsible for monitoring. Is that station manager?
Yes, exactly.
And I will talk about the reporting here in just a minute, because there's some major changes that occurred in that area. So what we didn't want to have happen was we didn't want community access television and our public access channel to be just a channel of programs that were produced wherever. Because community access television and our public access channel is for us, for the local people primarily. And so this was designed, and the intent behind these numbers and these definitions were to help keep it that way. So that's what we're looking at here. So we have certified producers, people who have been certified through the training program, local producers, people who produce programs that live here locally and want them telecast. We also continue to include a public service requirement as part of the certification process. In other words, you come take the classes, you do the work, you produce a show, you got to play it on CAT at least once.
Actually, while I'm thinking about it, I got a question.
Yep.
Say, for example, certify a minimum of 20 individuals, blah, 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 new producers. Suppose that we only got 19 new producers in a given year. Technically, that would be in default of the contract, so what are the ramifications of that?
Minimum fees don't go over 20, but you can go under 20.
No, I mean, you can go over, but you can't go under.
Right. Does that mean we get somebody says go out and try a little harder, or CAT wins the contract, or how does?
I think one of the things that we run into with that, Dave, is that the city council is the organization, is the body that approves or denies this contract. Mm-hmm. I don't think that if one performance metric is missed by one number,
right,
but they're going to say, we're throwing them out. All right, and again, it comes back to, and this has been described several times. even if an organization is in violation of its contract, it's incumbent upon the other party of the contract to do something about it. And to put that in brass tacks, well, let's go back to what happened a couple months ago. Okay, there were some serious allegations that community access television was in violation, that this contract was null and void because of some of the issues that were going on with the board. Okay, there were some allegations. Those allegations were examined. Those allegations were looked at. Even if the case could be made, even if that actually had been true, it would be incumbent upon the city to go to community access television and say, you're in violation of your contract, we are going to terminate the contract. Okay, so just because the contract, there might be a clause in the contract that is that's not met, doesn't immediately make the contract null and void and everybody gets kicked out. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. And really what that does is that makes us have to look at not, oh my gosh, the organization's in non-compliance, it's not compliant with the contract. What that makes us do is that makes us look at, do we need to adjust this number? Or if you as an organization, what I would encourage you to do as time goes on is look at the quarterly reports. And if there's 20 that have to be done in a year, and you did 6 in the first quarter, and 2 in the second quarter, and 1 in the third quarter, we better be looking at something that needs to change here, because we got to get more people through this process. These numbers were developed over hours and hours of meeting with, now previous president of the board and previous manager of the facility. But we developed these numbers that we felt were realistic. These numbers were agreed to, and so I think that even with the new board members and the new structure of the organization, that these numbers still are realistic. They are from our perspective.
I would like to say that both Colleen, President Pancake, former president, when she was in these negotiations, she said that they were conservative. And she felt like they could have been higher, but the city was cutting us some slack.
We want to be, and one of the things that we wanted to look at from the city perspective is, again, like I said before, we didn't want to say, okay, here's where it is, this is what it looks like today. Well, all of a sudden, after January 1st, it's going to look like this, and there's no transition. And you have to have transition. You have to be able to say, well, yeah, we might be able to do 35 certified producers in a year. But to go from 10 to 35 with no transition is not fair to the staff, it's not fair to the organization, and it's not fair to the city. I think that that's where we come from when we look at some of these numbers. And I appreciate their perspective that some of these numbers are conservative from their perspective, from your perspective. But again, we want to be looking at transition. We don't want to be looking at going from A to M with not any of the steps in between. Number 5 under F was also a biggie. Promote the use of public access channels to the extent that 400 new programs produced by local and certified producers are telecast per year. These may not include programs produced by the federal government channel. We do sometimes produce things at the government channel that we request to be telecast on CAT. Actually, we do that quite often. We do a lot of public service announcements and things like that. Those don't count, basically what that says in that 400. These programs may include those programs produced by CAT. Okay, and what that means is that short takes counts. Okay, but short takes one day, not here's short takes and there's 7 segments in short takes. That's not 7 programs. That's one program with 7 segments. Okay, does that make sense?
But each week's short takes is one.
Each week's short takes is one program.
And
yes.
For example, each week's episode of whatever series in question, WTF, the one
right.
I direct, is one new program.
One new program, yes. WTF as a whole, you do 45 of them a year. Okay, that's 45 new programs. That's not one. Yeah, and that's a very important clarification on that, and that's something I did want to clarify with y'all, is that that's the way, that's the intent behind this, and that's the way we look at it, is that it's just that short takes is one program. Every week's short take is a new program. Every week's WTF is a new program. So we just keep that in mind. 400 is a significant number.
Yeah, it just occurred to me that between Dave and myself, we do 15%. Of that 400 every year.
Personally, and I will tell you guys this, when I say personally, this is my own personal perspective. I'm not speaking for the city, okay? But when I say we, I'm speaking for the city. And I try to keep that clear because I don't want that confusion to happen. Personally, I think 80 hours, combined hours of local, regional, replay, and programming per week is too low. And I will be looking at changing that number in future contracts because basically there's 168 hours in a week, 24/7, telecast 24/7.
How many?
168. Trust me, I'm doing a lot of trying to figure out how to program a government channel. I know exactly how many hours in a week.
You know, last year they had to add like part of the second to the.
Oh yeah.
So you got to keep that in mind.
Once in a couple of years, we're having a whole day. That doesn't say new. That just says total. Okay. So essentially, what that does is say, for all intents and purposes, that community access television could be off the air for half the week, for over half the week, and still be in compliance with the contract. But yeah, that's one of those things that you look at and go, that's not a big deal right now. I'm not going to worry about it. So we didn't make any big changes on that. Look down here where it says, maintain a library of all programs produced by local and certified producers or CAT staff to be available for review and use at the television center. I really want to talk about this for a minute because we know that about a month and a half ago that there was a huge contention. Somebody said something, somebody took it wrong, somebody misconstrued it and threw it out all over the internet as fact. And that was the statement that the city wants to box up all the tapes that are in the CAT library and put them in the basement. Please let me assure you that nothing could have been further from the truth. Okay? There was some conversations, there was a meeting that me and Lindsley Smith, the Director of Communications, we tried to have a meeting with Sky in December to talk about 2010, where we're going, what we need to do, let's define some things, let's set some goals. One of the things is my role as manager of the facility is that I have to always be looking at space utilization. I have to be looking at the technical requirements of both channels, both staffs, and figure out where, not just where are we going to be next week or next month or next year, but where we're going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. We're not going to get a new building. We're not going to get, not unless, you know, we could get some kind of wild endowment or something.
Okay, so I have to look on the bill.
Actually, that's one of the questions that I was going to ask you at some point.
It's just that serious, that you're going to need a new building, so you can start looking now.
Well, maybe the CAT board can start looking for a huge endowment, and we can
It's going to take care of itself. You know how it's going to take care of itself? Everybody that walks in that door has to sign in. That has to happen. I don't see that happening. So that means the numbers are not really showing how many people have been coming in there. That's going to determine how big a space you get and what kind of an endowment you get. Trust me, I'm moving in a building next week. I know. Everybody that walks in my office has to sign in before, and they have to come in there for a service, not just a chat.
Yeah.
You come in to chat, you don't put your name on the list. It has to be something that you're coming to do. Once you get those numbers together, anything you need, you got it, because you have to prove that you're serving the people. That's the secret.
And that's a great idea, because, and a great way to do it, because there are times when people come in that they may come in and request a service, but it may not be a situation where it would be reflected in these performance metrics. So that makes it.
And if we get anybody from the older youth program up to 24, we should have somebody at that front desk and utilize them to do whatever paperwork, but making sure that somebody signs in every time they walk in.
But going back to what I said, there's no anticipation that we're going to get a new facility anytime in the near future. So what happened with this whole situation with the library was that we need to somehow figure out a way to get those tapes out of the control room, because I do plan to remodel that control room. I plan to remodel it for two reasons. One, we need the engineering space. We need about 2 or 3 more equipment racks in there, because we're expanding our capabilities, we're expanding our equipment and our technology capabilities, and I need the space. And the other reason is that I want to remodel that room is to separate the engineering, which is the equipment racks with all that stuff in it, with the big fans that blow air and make a lot of noise, and I want to separate that from the directors. I want to separate that from the control systems, the studio control systems. And the reason for that is to give studio control a nice, quiet place where directors and assistant directors and audio operators can concentrate on what they're doing. And they don't have people running back and forth through the space all the
Now,
time.
that's one thing that I noticed when I was in the editing class. When the editing class was going on, but then there was a show being aired.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of, stopping and starting because there was so much going on. So, I mean, that's just another thing that I noticed.
One of the things that I've noticed too, and that I want to improve, because what do we all come back to? We come back to we are wanting to teach people how to do this and how to do it right, how to do it well, how to do it in a professional manner. And for us to be able to do that, we really need to be able to provide a facility that they would go to anywhere else and see something similar. And so that's my goal. So to do that, we're going to have to move the libraries, not just Cat's Library, but the government channel's library as well. And to that end, we've got to figure out what we're going to do with it. Never, never, never was said, we're boxing up the tapes and stuff and putting them in the basement. We did talk about records that are stored in the basement. Now, how this got crossways, I have no idea. But please let me assure everybody that it was never, ever said that we're going to box up those tapes and put them somewhere that they can't be found. Let me tangent for just a second here on just that, if I may. This is me talking as me and my observations and sharing this with you guys, because you're not at the television center every day. You do observe some things, you do see how some things go, but you're not there every day. And to have a perspective of someone who is there that's not within your organization, I think might be valuable. There seems to be a propensity for things like this to happen, that someone would hear something, okay, misinterpreted, and then all of a sudden it becomes fact. And they may, and we've all played the game before. Marietta says something, whispers something in Rose's ear. Rose whispers it in David's ear. He whispers it to me. I whisper to Deidre. On to Richard. And then by the time it gets back to Marietta, it started as this, something over here, and it's something completely different. Communication theory 101, guys.
Yeah. Fritz, that's my experience for the past few months now.
Okay.
Exactly.
What I would hope as we go forward, as moving forward, is that we all take the time and make the effort to counteract misinformation. Okay? And I have started doing that. One of the things that I did is I became active on the CAP producers group on Yahoo. Every once in a while, I'll see something on there that's just kind of over here, and it's not truth, it's not real, and I will post something that says, actually, this is what the facts are. Facts. And in an attempt to help people understand that some of these things are not, because we don't want that kind of stuff. We don't want that happening, because what does that do? That
It
tears us up.
undermines public confidence in
Thank
what
you.
we're doing.
Yes, David, you're absolutely right. It undermines the confidence of the public in our entire operation.
All these newspaper articles have shown exactly how, where that goes.
For new members of the board, and some members of the board that have been around for quite some time, there has been for a long, long time a misperception that CAT and the government channel are one and the same. And they're not. There are people on the city council who still don't understand that the two organizations are separate. That Community Access Television contracts with the city to provide a service. The government channel is city staff. And we share the building. I think that there are several things that have been done in the past. Again, communication theory 101. Word choice, expressions make a big difference in how people perceive. Because one of the things that you'll notice that I do is I always refer to the facility as the television center. Why? Because what do we do down there? We make TV. That's what we do. You know, I see Dave come in once a week, sit down at a video control desk, you know, at a switcher and an audio board. He's got cameras in the studio. He's got talent out there. Lights are on. Mics are up. Recording. He's making television. City staff, we make television. A lot of it every week. Our independent producers and our certified producers come in and make lots of television. That's what we do. That's why we call it the television center. It's not CAT. That building is not CAT. And yet I hear people over and over and over again refer to it as, I'm at the CAT. I'm going down to CAT. I'm going to the CAT. That building is not the CAT. That facility is not the CAT. You guys, the producers, the staff is Community Access Television, but that building is not. And that's one reason why sometimes these things get confused. I had an individual come to me yesterday and ask me whether Fru could shoot, everybody knows Fru Gallagher, I'm sure. Fru Gallagher was one of my staff. Has been around has worked for the government channel for almost 15 years now. Lots and lots of people know Fru because she's been around and out and about in the community for a long time. They think that she works for CAT. So this misunderstanding, this misperception, I think has been detrimental to both organizations because it has not allowed CAT to separate itself from the city in a way that lends you credibility as a separate professional organization. So you get sucked into some of the stuff that happens on the city side that's unfortunate. You know, and we've had things like that happen a couple years ago. That happened with the whole forum thing and all that occurred then. And it's unfortunate that an organization such as yourself would be necessarily associated with that. And on the other side of it,
lap over the government channel and what kinds of programming you run on it.
I'm sorry, what now?
I'm not sure that I understand. You said what happened with the forum.
What happened is that in 2007, a member of the city council requested the government channel to cover a
debate on
to hold a forum on the ballot issue, on the village issue that the school district was trying to pass. Not this last one, but the one 3 years ago.
Right.
And based on all of the parameters, resource allocation, priorities of coverage, et cetera, the manager at the time of the government channel, the cable administrator, said, we're not going to do that. And it became a big controversy. Went to the city council, things were changed, priorities of coverage, the government channel policy resolution was changed, lots of things but that was a big controversy that got created that had nothing to do with community access television. I mean, you guys were not associated with it. It was, except once everybody starts thinking, and since a lot of people still think that it's all CAT, that happens. You know, the unfortunate thing is that some of that bleeds over. And we have to fight that. So as we go forward and we refer to things, we make the distinctions that this is the government channel, this is community access television, this is the television center, or the studio, or something like that, but it's not. That building is not a CAT. That building is not what some people refer to it as. And I think that would be helpful as we go forward with some of these things, is to help create that and help move us forward.
What's the resolution of the forums issue? Like what forums can be on government channel and what ones can't be? I mean, how was that decided and on what grounds?
We have resolution number 190-08, which was passed by the City Council in October of 2008, it's entitled Policy on the Use and Programming of the Government Channel Fayetteville, Arkansas, and it sets the priorities of coverage and telecasting, and that moderated public forums, big definition of it and where it lies in that's government channel, so I don't want to get too much into that. But that's what happened. That got more closely defined. Here's a big section that got changed in 2010 is Section H, Information. Quarterly and annual reports is defined by the Telecommunications Board of the City. These reports shall contain, but not be limited to, the following information. And this is coming up pretty quickly. And I'm sure that somewhere along the line, I would hope that Mark Warren is going to ask somebody on the board and or me for some guidance on developing this report, because there are several things in here that are, I think, are critical to demonstrating and illustrating the performance of this organization. That's why we put them in here. Itemization of programs telecast, that's pretty simple. Here's a list of the programs that we telecast in the last quarter. That goes back to the 400 new programs day. So we can say, okay, here they are. Itemization of program requesters, those are people that ask for a program to be requested. Not a producer, not a class, just someone who came in and said, hey, will you, what has traditionally been called imports, will you play this program? Number of new certified producers. That one's pretty apparent why we want to see that. Number of new local producers and number of new requesters. Type and number of programs telecast, including new and repeat programs produced by certified producers. Basically what the city wants to do is we want to see a report that says this is what we've done because of the two things, training and programming. And that's what this looks at, training and programming. New and repeat programs produced by local producers and new and repeat import programs. Those are the three primary categories of programming. Programming by certified producers, programming by local producers, and programming that is not produced locally but is like what you described, that jazz series that you sponsored. CAT promotional programs, new and repeat programs produced by CAT, that would be something along the lines of short takes. If it's produced by CAT staff, like short takes or, is there another one that the CAT staff is doing besides short takes right now?
They do, sometimes they do news, they do one things. Let's see, then we have our fundraisers.
Well, fundraisers are actually separate. So you have CAT promotional programs, that would be anything that promotes the organization, and then fundraising programs. And there is a fundraising, there is a requirement in the contract that CAT producing telecast a minimum of 2 fundraising events for CAT a year.
I got a question. How does message board fit into all of this grand scheme?
It doesn't. It doesn't. Message board is just, that's just there.
Let me jump in here and tell the board that a lot of this information is information that has been typically included in quarterly reports. However, some of the information, such as number of new local producers and new and repeat programs produced by local producers, we don't have any way yet of keeping track of that. Everything
involved or something like that?
No, it is, well, all these other things are kept in Facil, and they can generate the numbers from this report mostly from their Facil reports. However, we don't have anything yet in Facil to designate when a show is a local producer. So Mark is working on that. I've already discussed different changes that are going to be for that are expected from this one. But we'll talk if you have some
Okay.
questions.
I know some of this might have to be created manually
Yeah.
until
Yeah.
some of that database stuff gets
That's what
Chris,
law, that's what laws are coming up here.
Before we get too far away from the subject that you were talking about, I wanted to get some clarification for all of us, I guess.
Sure.
Something with, when you're talking about the relationship between CAD and government channel and the data center and all that. I'm not sure I even fully appreciate, and I wonder if the rest of us do, how the budgeting works. And what's covered by CAT's budget and what's covered by the government channel's budget and the whole city owns the equipment thing and.
It's a great point. It's a great thing for us to talk about, and I'll be glad to do that. I think the rest of the contract is pretty much, we changed some wording in it. Just, let me finish this real quick.
Yeah.
We changed some wording in it just for some clarification, and those types of things. For example, just a real quick example on page 6, CAT shall furnish, the city shall furnish one time as 2010 contract renewal 3 computers for the office use of CAT. What that used to say was that the city would provide 3 computers for the office use of CAT. That was very vague, and all the staff at the Community Access Television was pretty adamant that they have open capabilities on those computers. Well, if the city is going to maintain the computers, the city was going to have full administrative rights and lock them down.
Why is it 39 cents per copy? Why so high?
That's
Three does.
do what?
In other words, it's 4 cents. It's just
Oh,
under 4
point
cents.
oh three, okay.
Okay. So, because CAT staff needed to have computers that were that they had administrative rights to, and they could add programs to, and they could. What we did is we rewrote this to basically say, okay, the city's going to give you 3 computers. Here you go. Free, gratis, no, nothing. But you're responsible for them. You're responsible for the maintenance, upkeep, software. We gave CAT, the city gave CAT 3 computers that were configured with the city's standard build of software, office software, and it's a standard city computer. At that point in time, they became responsibility of Community Access Television.
Software license.
The software on them at this point in time is all licensed, yes, through the enterprise license of the city. And this flows right into what Dave wanted to talk about. Because that might seem to be a little confusing. CAT has a responsibility for maintenance and upkeep and repair on these computers, and yet why is the software under the city's enterprise license, etc.? The city, it's the best way I can put it, the city of Fayetteville owns every single thing that's in that television center. Okay? Every piece of equipment, every mic cable, every camera, every computer, everything that's in there is owned by the city of Fayetteville. My role as the manager of the center is to manage that facility. That includes everything that's in it. Does not include the operations of Community Access Television. That's what you guys do. You manage the operations of CAT. You set the policies, you set the procedures, and the manager and the staff execute those. You run the operations of CAT. That's why the city really had nothing to say about all this other stuff that was going on since November, and finally we got through it all and all that stuff. You never saw the city step in and say, well, you need to do this, you need to do that, because that's what's your business, and that's not our business. That facility, because it is owned by the city, is our business, and it's my business. I am the one person there that is responsible for all that. And I take that responsibility very seriously. There is no ours and theirs. There is no CAT's and government channel. It's all belongs to the city. Now, what I do as part of my job is I designate equipment to be, this is equipment that's designated for public use, public checkout. This is equipment that is designated for city staff use only. This is equipment that is designated for CAT staff use only. Okay? And that changes. For example, we had a camera that was, that broke. It was a camera that was being utilized as public checkout, and it just broke, and it was 10 years old, not worth trying to spend the money to get it fixed. There was a camera that was designated for city staff use only that was being very underutilized. And I asked city staff, how often does this camera go out on a shoot? Well, I don't know, once a month maybe. We really don't use it that often. Okay, well, I'm taking it out of here and I'm putting it in public checkout. Okay? I do that. I take that responsibility very seriously because I have to look at the big picture. I have to look at the entire facility. Nobody on the CAT staff and nobody in the community access television organization is responsible for any of the technology that's in that center. Responsible for the use of it? Yeah. Responsible for utilizing it for what you contracted to utilize it for? Absolutely. But in terms of monetary? No. In terms of support? No. In terms of making sure that the channel stays on the air because this cable came unplugged or that computer's not working right? No. That's on me. Because of that, one of the things that you have heard, I'm sure you've heard, talked about is the infamous or famous or however you want to say it, 60-40 split. Real quick thumbnail sketch of how city finances work. With city finances, there's the general fund and there's the capital expenditure fund. Both of those funds are revenue come from sales tax. The general fund pays for salaries, electricity, utilities, paper clips, travel, and training, all of those things. The capital improvement fund pays for equipment, items that are long-term assets, and things like that. Now, what has been traditionally happened in the television center is that there has been $45,000 to $50,000 a year allocated to the television center just for general equipment upkeep and upgrade. That could be anything from a $200 printer to a $5,000 camera. That fund was what was subject to this 60-40 split that people talk about. The 60-40 split came about, and this is some history. The 60-40 split came about because a few years ago there was a lot of contention about how the capital expenditure money was being spent. And the person who was responsible for that is no longer in a position to do that. No longer with the city. The policy director at that time, Susan Thomas, to essentially keep the peace, said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this capital expenditure budget, $45,000, whatever it was, and say, cable administrator, you get to say how 60% of this is going to be spent, and Kat, you get to say how 40% of it's going to be spent. Which did what it needed to do at the time. I mean, it eliminated or it reduced significantly the contention. What wasn't considered was that was probably illegal because the city cannot give a private organization authorization to spend its funds. It's just against the law. So to do that, nobody challenged it. And I guess anybody could say, you could say that nothing is against the law until it goes to court, and the judge says guilty, not guilty. But nobody challenged it, and it wasn't a real issue. And it eliminated or alleviated a significant amount of contention. The other thing that it did is it created a situation where you had even more delineation of the two organizations, the city and CAT, the government channel, and the person responsible for the managing the television center and community access television. I'll tell you, some of you guys remember this, some of you guys weren't around. There was a wall that was about this thick between the two organizations. It very much was mine, yours. And there were fights there were screaming matches, there was yelling, there was all kinds of ugliness. Thank you. It was ugly. And while I think that the 60-40 split situation did accomplish reducing that somewhat, I think it was short-sighted. To me personally, I believe it was very short-sighted, possibly illegal, and it did nothing to foster a beginning of a more cooperative relationship. So a year ago, I come into the picture, I look at this and I say, this is not good. So we talked about it, the administration and I talked about it, and that's where the 60-40 split went. Since I am responsible for all of it, you know, I'm one of these kind of people who takes my responsibilities very seriously. I don't put them off on somebody else. I'm not going to put on you guys, the board of directors or the CAT staff, responsibility for something that you really don't have any authority over. You really don't have any authority over what happens with the equipment in the television center. So it's not fair for you to have responsibility for it. From a standpoint, yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Are we responsible for any of the equipment?
From a standpoint of this is a responsibility perspective. You have a responsibility to take care of it and to assure that people are. I'm sorry?
So maintenance is very, very important on our part.
Maintenance is important for everybody's part.
Okay.
Just, yes.
And if our staff is not maintaining the equipment, is this an issue? Is this a problem?
Well, we have to talk about that because one of the things that we need to deal with, one of the things that we need to discuss between the management, whoever may become either Mark, the interim administrator, or whoever may become the other manager. That's one of the things I tried to talk to Scott about last December, that we weren't able to reach any conclusions about, and that was where does that balance out? Okay, yes, there's a responsibility on the CAT staff, and it's actually, I believe, enumerated in the contract that this equipment that's being checked in and out, okay, it has to be checked when it comes in. Does it all work? Is it all in good shape? Is everything operational on it? Did somebody break something? Why? Because if I don't know what's broken, I can't fix it.
Now, whose responsibility is that?
To fix it?
No, to make sure things are checked in appropriately and things are contained. Whose job is that?
Whatever staff members with Community Access Television.
Okay.
Whoever staff member of Community Access Television is assigned to that. Not necessarily, not all the maintenance. In other words,
not maintenance, I mean, making sure that it comes back, like you said.
Yes, ma'am.
Operable, and that it comes back period.
Yes, ma'am.
So what about, I mean, like, for example, if we buy a new camera, that comes out of the city's money, which you have say-so over or whatever, but for maintenance, say for a periodic cleaning of the cameras or if something breaks, the city...
We are.
Okay.
I am.
So basically, we're responsible to ensure that only normal wear and tear happens.
And if it's different than that, I need to get I need to be informed.
So if the staff is not informing you because of neglect, is that a problem?
Yes, ma'am, that's a problem.
Okay.
I can't fix what I don't know is broken.
Right. And if it's not maintained long enough, it can
Well,
destroy a piece of equipment.
this might be a good illustration of this. For the last 2 weeks, there's been a series of errors occurring in the Media Star playback system. And it has to do with the message board. At this point in time, there's only one staff member of Community Access Television that is understands and is trained to create and implement the message board system. Okay, whatever it takes.
Is that
Creating the
Heather?
graphics. Huh?
Is that Heather?
No, that's George.
Oh, okay.
And I don't necessarily want to get into
Sure,
individual
I
staff
just-
members. I mean, there's a reason I'm not naming names on a lot of this stuff.
Well, I'm not wanting to blame, I just want to understand whose job is what.
Okay.
Okay.
That's the only person, and I've talked to Mark about this, and have said, and he's told me, well, she's the only person who knows how to do it. Okay, that's fine. But these errors continue to occur, And these errors are, we don't know why they're occurring. I don't know if it has to do with the programming instructions or whether these files don't exist. Because what the error is a file not found error. And a file being the graphic, the picture, okay, that's supposed to be the message board. I don't know what the errors are. Okay, well, since I don't program the system, or my staff doesn't program the telecast system, okay, since that's the case, then
On the same.
I'm not going to just walk in there and put my hands on it and start doing something with it, okay? That's not, I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do is talk to the manager, and I went to Mark and say, Mark, we need to do something about this. We need to find out why. It's either this or do that. It's either this problem with this, and here's a solution, or it's a problem with that, and here's a solution. Okay. One of my frustrations in this situation is, and I understand that CAT staff is shorthanded. Okay, and I understand that they're under a lot of stress and such. One of the things that I have to deal with is I have to deal with the people who make the system, MediaStar. MediaStar's big propensity is to blame the operator for any issues. So if I'm going to go to MediaStar with any problems, then I have to make sure that there are no operator issues involved, or at least they're minimized, or at least we don't know that they're involved. And they're going to identify that yes, it is an operator issue, and this is where it went wrong. Okay, that's fine. But if I have a total red screen of nothing but errors for 2 weeks, and I can't do anything else about that. What I've got to do is I've got to go to the manager and say, we need to do something about this. Okay. So essentially where it is if you don't do something about this, figure out what it is, you either do this or do this. I know it's going to take work. I know it's going to take some time. It takes time for me to go fix a mic cable. It's time that, all of our time is precious time. I know it's going to take time to do. I know you may not necessarily want to do it, but at this time, I am the only video engineer in the facility. At this point in time, I can't adequately support that system until you figure out what's going on with these errors. So I'm giving you the opportunity to do it. And this is what I wrote Mark an email, and I said, Mark, here's the situation. I mean, this is just follow up on our conversation. I do this quite often. I send an email as a follow up to a verbal conversation. Here's where we are on this. Now, it's either this, and here's a solution, or it's this, and here's a solution. Please make something happen with this by Monday. And essentially I said, because if you don't, I will be left with no other choice than to go in there and wipe it out myself and start it from scratch. I don't want that to happen. I want CAD staff to have the opportunity to identify the issues so they don't occur again, and to fix them so they know what to do in the future if it happens, because we don't program the channel. City staff does not program the public access channel. CAT staff does that. Does it under contract, and it's also appropriate that they do it at this point in time because that alleviates anybody being able to say there's been some kind of monkey business going on. But from a technical standpoint, I mean, I make no determination of what's played on that channel at all. None. I have no say-so in it. I have no influence on it, and I don't ever walk in there and do anything about that. Yes, sir.
I guess a couple of questions that are kind of related, but anyway. Short term, I guess we're stuck with MediaStar, but medium to long term, are you thinking of going away from MediaStar and trying to replace it with a better system?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. And,
absolutely.
Okay, and the other question that's related to that in the meantime is it strikes me as a bit of a problem. You do apparently that only one person on the CAT side is really up to speed on MediaStar and its intricacies, weirdnesses, whatever you want to call it.
Well, what's happened is...
Can we get a MediaStar trainer in here to...
No, because your staff won't allow it. Your staff will not, and I don't agree, I'm sorry, I don't disagree with them. My interactions with the MediaStar people have not been the best in the world.
Yeah.
Okay? They're not
go away from them.
we can try to do, I don't think it's an issue of getting somebody in to train. I think it's an issue of what happened was this individual was the only one who took on learning how to do message board. This is the only individual who took on the process of converting the programming to MPEGs and actually doing the programming itself. That's just what happened under the old management. And that could, you know, based on what parameters you guys say in terms of the new management going in, you know, that's up to you guys how you might want to change that.
So are you saying that it's more appropriate or more efficient if other staff can troubleshoot this particular problem?
Oh, I would tell you that in any organization, cross-training is essential. You don't ever want to have, especially in a technical situation like we have, you don't want to have, what happens if this individual, something happens to them, they're sick, they've got to go out of town for 2 weeks, or they're on vacation or something, and now where are you left? I mean, you're left with the situation of, okay, and I'm sorry,
Thank you.
I think it's like 10:30.
It is 10:30, and I really appreciate it.
I would tell you this, my door is always open. If anybody would like to come by and talk to me, and I'd be more than happy to come see you also, again, as a board at any time, if you have any other questions that you want to talk about or anything like that. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Hey, Fritz, I got one quick question. And I understand that your title is City Television Station Manager. Through the contract, it's Television Center Manager. So
I know, that's another one of those
Station
things that
Center.
you remember me talking about how things are referred to?
Yeah.
We refer to that facility as the City of Fayetteville Television Center.
Center.
Yes.
Okay.
I am the manager of the television center and of the government channel.
Being the chair of the policy committee and having made the last batch of big revisions, I want to make sure I get your title correct. Thank you very much.
And if you have any questions about the contract or anything like that, the clarifications that you're doing for that policy, please give me a call.
Thanks for keeping the door open.
Hey, no problem.
Appreciate it, big time.
Well, have a great day.
Thanks a lot.
I guess we'll get with you a little bit later on, maybe doing another technology committee meeting at some point, because didn't get to give it time on it, but anyway.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Hey, Jim, is your camera on?
Yeah.
Okay, would you mind turning it off while we take a little break and discuss with the board members whether they want the rest of it?
Well, I wouldn't mind, but I wonder what the reasoning is.
What?
What is the reasoning why that would be separate from the other part of the meeting?
You can,
And I'm not trying to be contentious. What's the difference?
well, in the first place, I didn't give you permission to do that. I didn't even, you know,
Well,
we started suddenly and I didn't take a poll to see how everybody felt. Please allow me to do that. Let us, you know, take a break since this is.
Well, Deidre, I'm not being, as I say, I'm asking the question because one of the issues is whether or not this is an FOIA meeting.
No.
All right, but from my viewpoint, it is. And so I will ask you, as a CAT producer and as a member, community member of the policy committee, to let me shoot this, and y'all make a decision later on whether to televise it or whatever you want to do.
We don't do that. We don't make decisions on what plays on the station.
All right, then.
And that's why I'm asking you now to give us a chance to discuss whether we want this private orientation to have a camera.
The camera is running now, Deidre.
I know that.
And what I'm trying to do is record it. There was a beautiful meeting. The first hour and a half has been wonderful. Now, I see absolutely nothing that would have been controversial or...
I understand that.
And I don't think there will be in the remainder.
What I'm asking you to do is to respect what I am trying to do.
I am respecting.
No, you're not even trying to understand.
I beg your pardon.
Okay, I
I
have.
thought your email said that it wouldn't be televised.
It did, and I have contested that, and if you want, I'll read my little statement here, and we decided later on.
Okay, right now we're going to take a break, and everybody is going to come back together, and then I'm going to let them know. So I would appreciate it if you would turn that off until after the board.
I will be happy to take a break.
Thank you.
All right, but I will not turn it back on when you come back in.
Jim, then I will have to ask you to leave.
Well, then you asked me to leave, and I will review my statement, and I will turn it. It's still on, Deidre.
Okay.
And then
Okay, I really don't want to have a fight with you about this.
I
wish you
understand,
would be
and I
respectful.
don't want to have a fight with you. I'm trying to get a principle established
I
here.
understand your principles.
All right, and I understand yours.
No, you
And
don't.
we disagree.
You
no,
don't.
we-
You can't possibly understand because
we-
you are not the president of this board.
I
trying
disagree.
to pull these members together. You might be listen.
I don't think that's the issue from my viewpoint.
Well, I know it's not the issue from your viewpoint, but you're not the one who's trying to conduct this meeting.
That's true.
It's not a meeting. It is an orientation. I'm trying to instruct.
And
my
that's
board
where we
members.
disagree, Deidre.
I know that, Jim.
All right.
And you're not seeing my side.
I am
That's why
seeing your
I'm-
side.
No, dear, you're not.
We
Okay.
just don't agree.
You're right, we don't.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm going to take a break.
Okay?
Thank you.
Fine.
I had a tough week. Spent Tuesday night in Springdale Hospital.
And would you like to say that?
You might not want to say them because these things are going to go in your board books. And it's kind of hard to flip through when things change. Now that Fritz has talked about the contract, the reason I had him open with the contract is because that is what we do with everything. And the bylaws, they are how our board operates. The contract, and that's what policies do. So that's what we're going to be going, the order we're going to go in. We're going to go with the contract, which first did. Now we're going to go over the bylaws, what governs each board, and then we're going to go over the policies.
Bruce, I called you Bruce.
Trying to get the policies right. Jim Bemis is here, and he wants to record this. I have told him that that is up to the board. I told him he is welcome here to observe. This is our orientation. This is not an eco-liable meeting. This is not a meeting at all. This is where we are getting together, coming together as a board and learning about our responsibilities as board members. It's a private thing. That isn't a public. It has nothing to do with public business or how we handle public funds or our public responsibilities. This is how our board is run. And for that reason, I have asked him that cameras be here. Jim feels differently. He feels it is the right of the people to see what happens. I told him that I would defer to my board. You guys have a choice. If you want no cameras right now, let me know.
I don't think it's something that needs to be shared with the public, but it could be a tool for us to use once we move away from here and go home and we can look at it and just become familiar so that we can be, really aware. Because what happens in meetings and workshops or whatever, you're presenting a lot of stuff, you cannot retain everything, and it would be a good source if we would be able to get a copy of it for each board member, but not used to air on the on television.
May I ask you? I'm sorry. May I ask you?
He's going to come up
I'm
here
not-
and give a statement.
I'm not going to take much time. I think you've all received my emails. I think you know my position. I think it's an honest disagreement. And I respect Deidre greatly for taking on this challenge and for each of you all. I am, yes, in at least two roles today. One is as a community member of your policy committee. That role is not defined. And in fact, it's new. needed to get another member to get off that center on the subcommittee, on the, what y'all call policy committee. So I come here with complete respect for you. My desire to show this is because this meeting this morning so far has been beautifully done, and the public needs to know that you guys are doing this job in a responsible and professional way. I don't see any problem with that, either. I'm sorry, but I just don't see the problem since it is an open public forum that you folks are in charge of. It's the only thing like it in town. And it's a real difficult task to describe the difference between a designated public forum, like the government channel, and the, they always say, quintessential public forum, which is what y'all are in charge of. And I realize that you're a nonprofit and all of that, and I understand that argument, but I would like to have, I'm going to be a test case if you want me to be, or even if you don't, because I think it's not my position to be standing here doing this. I think the city council, the telecom board, and you all have a responsibility to keep the channel open to the public. As a community member, I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to try to let the public know what y'all are. I don't know what another definition of what a community member is on your policy committee. So one of the things I hope we discuss today is what is the community member on the policy committee. Now, related to the actual videotaping of this, I've offered, and I'm going to repeat my offer to offer the results of this to someone who's going to do a heck of a lot better job than I am. David, I would love to see a production that was, I'm using a videotape back there, 30-year-old camera. I've also got a little one that was new. So I'm still trying to learn the business. The documentation of what y'all say, as you said, is what's important, not what you look like. And what I think is really important for people to see how well you're conducting the meeting and how well prepared you are.
Well, that's the thing, because this meeting is designed to just pull us all together as new family members, so that we can all get on the same page. So we would respect an opportunity to get a chance to know each other better, to learn what our responsibilities are. And I guess that's why she asked that it not be televised, because, you know, this is a private, it's like a training for us, so we can know what's going on. And so that's why she asked. It's not that we're trying to hide anything or keep anything from the public.
Sure.
We just need a forum where we can come together, and from this day forward, anything that wants to be televised, it can be, but allow us respect enough to know that we need to, you know, get a chance to come on board and get you know, our mind, have a meeting of the mind, I guess you would say. You know, and like I said, if we were to get a copy of it, each person would get a copy of it, so that we can be able to review it and find out, you know, okay, what did she say about this, or what did we say about that, and we can be, you know, well versed
You bet.
in the different
Well, that's yours. I mean, this,
so
everything
that's all I'm
about
saying. But as far as televising or anything, I don't think that that's necessary right now. Anything after anything, that should be a practice to you to do this, and then anything else that you want to, you know, video or whatever, then you can do whatever you need to do with it at that point. But just respect the fact that we want to try to, you know, come on board with each other.
Believe me, I understand the position. I've argued the other side.
Marietta has something.
I would like to say, with all due respect to everybody here, I was under the understanding that this was private for us. And second of all, I've been a regular on YouTube, so I'm very camera shy these days. Not that I have anything to hide, because anything I have to say, I'll be happy to say in the court of law. Okay?
Right.
But I feel that words that I've said and things that I've done have been so twisted around and put on YouTube in such a disgusting way that I'm very camera shy. And I feel like this is a private matter among us board members, and I feel kind of invaded. No disrespect for you, because I get the impression that your intentions are very pure. And I appreciate that, believe me. But not other people who will take hold of this, their intentions televisions are not pure. And I refuse to be another, have another show on YouTube. I refuse that. In fact, I will put my foot down, seriously. Okay?
I understand.
And please hear the notion in me.
Okay.
Because I have some issues here.
Okay.
Thank you.
I understand your position. I understand the interest. The issue is I understand it is whether this meeting can be conducted so that you don't do business, number one. And two, that the public will never know, and as we've had in the past, no, excuse me, as we've seen in the past, there's a whole lot of rumor, innuendo, and so forth that goes on about what you do in the meeting. That's my intent. Now, I'm willing to walk out of here later and give you the tapes, and then make a decision at the full board meeting as a regular public meeting of the CAT board, and y'all make a decision on what to do with the tapes.
What has to happen is we have got to be separate from what happened then, because we're going toward what we're getting ready to do. So we can never, from this day forward, be associated with what happened then.
Well, that's not completely true.
Well, I'm just saying that should be looked at. If it's not completely true, it is true when you have new members on the board. You cannot expect those members to take the responsibility of what happened before we got here.
Well, that's true, but you
That's the
still,
part that I'm talking
I understand.
about.
And with again, respect to you and everybody else, whatever happens to you from this day forward, you'll be held responsible in, let me say the word again, in a court of law.
Right.
Hear that, court of law. You are responsible now to take responsibility for what's happened before. Believe it or not, because the problem hasn't gone away. The problem is still here. And until we address the real problems, then we are all liable. Okay?
Well,
I don't know what you mean by that.
You'll find out.
Okay.
My opinion, I mean, you may discuss that in your meeting, and my only issue is I will offer these tapes to you, and I do think it'd be useful to study. Just like the ones that we've made for the policies committee. I can't retain this. There was an hour and a half here of a lot of stuff we have to be talking about in the policy stuff.
Right, I was gonna say, we're not doing business here.
Related to the contract, and later, then when we discuss it in the committee, we'll have to go back to some of what Fritz said, because that's his perspective. A lot of that is not my perspective as a CAT producer, as a sense.
Well, it doesn't matter, because
I know.
that's the city's perspective.
Well, that's his
That
perspective.
is the contract is the city's perspective.
There is, we think what we're doing now is really.
All right, just know that my Saturdays is usually used to sleep until 3 o'clock.
I understand.
Because of my real hard schedule during the week.
And we need to continue to come down to
Yeah,
this.
I don't want to take up, but I would like to, and I would discuss that in the committee.
Good.
And that's, I think, the proper place to discuss it.
Can we board members take it out?
So I move that if we are not gonna air this to use as a tool for the board members, that it should not be televised. If it is gonna be used and each person get a copy, then you will agree to let it be aired. Only if it's understood that it's not to be put on public TV for the public, because this is our molding and making time.
I second that. That's a motion.
We can't do business, folks. So this is a discussion that will have to take place at the board.
I agree.
Okay.
If that is the agreement, then I will turn off the camera when you say so.
What?
But I do think that these recordings will be useful.
At the end of, when we're through talking about policy, the camera will go off and you will be asked to leave. Because we will then be discussing only things that
Okay.
have to do with the growth of this board.
That's fine with me.
And I would appreciate it if you would give us that tape until the next board meeting, when we can discuss what is to be done with it.
It's my property because,
Yes, sir.
and I don't know if I would agree with that either. I'll give you a copy of it after I use it. I don't want any anybody messing with my tape.
Okay.
Can we do
and
sign a document?
I'll be happy to say.
Okay, okay.
We shouldn't do it at all. We shouldn't do it at all. I retract, what I said before, and I think that we shouldn't have it aired at all. I mean, sorry.
Okay. That is one vote.
Because
Two. Anyone else prefer to have the camera off?
Well, just because there seems to be a general air of suspicion, and because I don't think that we're doing anything that we need to try to hide, I would suggest we let the camera roll. I mean, just because if we insist on it being turned off, people will think that we're trying to hide something. And I don't think we are, so.
This is already.
I understand. I'm listening to everybody. This is not business. This is, you know, how groups function. What is your opinion?
I don't mind that the camera's on. I just would prefer that it not be broadcast over the televised to the public. But I really don't mind if it's on because I don't feel like we have anything to hide. So that's just my.
I would suggest that it would probably make for some pretty boring programming anyway. I'm not sure anybody would actually care to watch it, but I would say that we should make it available if anybody has concerns and wants to see it. I mean,
Okay.
The only person
in other words, if you want to see it, come down to Cat and pop it into a machine and
the only
check it
person
out.
I really feel comfortable saying this is David Young, because he's not here. And I think that would be really good. David Young's one of our board members, and I think it would be very valuable for him to see. But I still feel kind of, you know, like this is not appropriate. Not that I have anything to hide.
David, how do you feel?
Well, I've been thinking about this, and I see the truth in every person's point of view. I don't understand why some. Well, no, I do understand that there seems to be a real sense of suspicion, and I don't understand all the reasons why that is. But I do think that as a board, we need to respect the fact that the producers are one of our primary constituents. And what leads me, the conclusion that it leads me to is that the problem is, for me, is not whether this meeting is taped. The problem is that we have a serious rift here that I would like to investigate how we could mend. I would like to see a way to work, to have some kind of a dialogue with the producers to see what can be done so that we don't find ourselves in this situation. I understand that there probably isn't a legal mandate for this to be, for anything past the policy stuff to be, taped. And I don't understand why anybody would want to sit around and watch it. But if, to the extent that they would, I don't have a problem with it. I'm just really confused by the situation, and I'm still trying to make my mind up. So I would like for the thing that I would call for is for some more trust and understanding, and that doesn't mean that I'm saying that I'm pointing the finger at anybody that I think that somebody is not doing that. But it's troubling to me, the whole situation.
There's still a lot of holes in this whole situation for many of us.
Oh, yeah.
And, not saying that there's a person's opinion that they think this is right and that's wrong, and that's your opinion. I'm talking about facts. I basically deal with facts. And so, we just haven't had all the issues to present it to us so that we can figure out what's the real truth and what's not the truth. So, I mean,
Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that.
and see, that's another thing. I don't know what you appreciate because I don't know what you're talking about.
I appreciate you saying that there's no real facts,
Yeah.
and that's it.
All right. Okay. 2 absolute no's. 1, 2, it's okay.
I'm an extension on it,
And,
because I just don't know how I feel about the whole thing.
well,
Has anything happened in the past where he used footage in a negative way?
well, I trust him.
No.
I just,
Okay.
But things
so I
have been
mean,
done
if it-
innocently, and then other things have been scrutinized. People have taken innocent things.
that he has done.
no.
He's
So
never
that's
done
what I'm
it
saying. So
before. He's never-
if it doesn't
but
involve him, so
If
let's
it
just go ahead
if
and
it
let
goes
it
public, then people will scrutinize things and twist it around. And that's where my concern is, because it's been done that way.
yes,
I understand your position. Let me make myself clear. And I'm very, very confused on this, or I wouldn't be here. I'm confused on what FOIA and its provisions are for a meeting. I've insisted other meetings of the educational channel and of the city council, as a matter of fact, and the retreat for the telephone board to be televised, simply because it omits a lot of rumor. But that's my personal opinion. I am giving you the tapes. And I would give them to you, David, for example, and you just go up and copy them and get them back to me. But I don't want anybody else. I want to be sure of what's happening for the same reasons you are. I'm, concerned. I want to make sure that they're copied just exactly as they happened here. In the past, I've seen instances in other channels where that wasn't done.
well, our experience has been, meetings have been taped, and then they have been edited, and other things inserted,
Yeah.
and they have been
I agree
twisted.
100%.
And that is our concern.
And
Well, I
I
understand.
personally have been slandered. Okay, I personally have been slandered.
Yes.
I'm a victim here. Okay? I'm going to accuse of things that I have nothing to do with, legally or illegally.
I understand that
Okay, so
concern.
please understand my emotion here.
I do.
It's not against anybody here.
I would feel the same way. But what I'm saying for my particular tapes, if y'all will agree, then I will turn the tapes over to you, David. And then David can make me a copy.
Why? Oh, well, it's
And I will not show it on that until you discuss it as a board.
Why David?
Pardon me?
Why David?
Well, because he
I'm
works
a
with us.
producer.
Well, okay.
Okay?
But you do it together. I'll do it with both of them.
Okay.
Working against the clock.
It doesn't make any difference. I just want
Okay.
it happen, and then my decision made later on in a full board meeting, a business meeting, about what you want to do with it. And that way it becomes a part of your business as a cat board, whether those changes, John.
Okay.
If you, I think I understand your concern.
I'm just trying to make sure I understand everything across the board.
Okay, well, I certainly would like to do that also.
Well, I'll volunteer to take your tape and jointly with you, if you want to participate, and make a copy of it. And
In other words, Mr. McMahon, you will assure me that just these two and no other people get my tape. That's what my concern is.
Yeah, okay. I'll tell you what. Let's have an agreement of trust right here.
Okay.
You pick 2 people on this board. You would trust that way?
But
Okay.
these two-
Okay. And you 2 will be the only ones who deal with that, and Jim. And then at the next board meeting, we'll discuss this. Okay?
Well, you may not be able to use this, but I will give you a videotape and a flash.
okay,
Okay.
that'll work.
Now, let's get down to business, folks.
Now, when can you tell me when you want me to leave and so forth?
Okay, well, as soon as we're through with policies, then I'll.
Is that next?
Yeah, we're doing bylaws and policies right
Okay.
now.